Hey guys, so this video is going to be pretty straightforward, no extra fluff. I want to talk about all the manual settings you need to know for filming something like a YouTube vlog. First things first, you're going to want to go ahead and pick what resolution you want to shoot in. On your camera body, navigate to the menu that allows you to select resolutions. If there's a 4K option, go ahead and select that. 1080p is also a high enough resolution on YouTube in my opinion. If your camera does have a 6K or 8K option, for the purpose of shooting a talking head video vlog, I think it's absolutely overkill. Once we have the resolution we're going to shoot in, we have to pick our frame rate. Now 24 frames per second is what most movies are shot in. So if your camera has the option to shoot in 24 FPS, go ahead and select that. Now if your camera doesn't have 24 FPS, that's okay. It's likely going to have 30 FPS, pick that one. There's a couple reasons why you would want to shoot in only 24 FPS and not 60, 120, or 240. And that's because talking head videos like this, you're gonna only benefit from 24 frames per second. So there's no need for that extra data of recording more frames per second. Frame rates like 120, 240, they're gonna be used for slow motion where you're slowing it down in post, but we're not gonna talk about that in this video. Next, we're gonna need to talk about our exposure settings. For your exposure, you're gonna wanna go ahead and double your frame rate. So 24 times 2 is 48. Now most cameras, like this Sony a6400, only have 1/50th of a second. That's more than close enough. Let's go ahead and use this. What 1/50th of a second is gonna do is introduce a natural motion blur. For example, here's me waving my hands at 24 frames per second at 1/50th of a second exposure versus me waving my hands at 24 frames per second and an exposure rate of 1/125th. As you can clearly see, the 1/50th of a second looks a lot more pleasing because it has a natural motion blur, and the 1/125th looks very choppy and a lot less natural. Next, let's go ahead and talk about aperture. Now, aperture in itself can be its own video, so I'm just gonna give you the very big basics of it. The lower the aperture number means less is in focus and more light is allowed in. Higher aperture numbers means more is in focus and less light is allowed in. Now I use low aperture numbers because I like my background out of focus, keeping the center of focus on me. And just as a note here, aperture can be kind of confusing. When someone says a wide aperture, it's actually a low aperture number. So it's kind of counterintuitive in that aspect. So until you get the grasp of that, just think about it as numbers. You know, the lower number means more blurriness, more light. The higher the number means less blurriness and less light. Now ISO measures your camera's sensitivity to light. A low ISO means less sensitivity, and a high ISO means more sensitivity to light. Typically, I try and aim for the lowest possible ISO because high ISO values will introduce quite a bit of noise to your shot. And lastly, this is extremely important, getting your exposure right. This is a histogram. It shows how light is distributed in your shot. You can cycle your camera's display settings so you show this and use this as a tool to get the proper exposure. Now, exposing to the right means getting that graph as far to the right as possible without peaking. What do I mean by peaking? I mean this line kind of goes straight up really fast at a 90-degree angle, indicating that either your shadows on the left or your highlights on the right of the graph are either too dark or too bright, properly record the data, and you're just losing quality overall. So trying to expose your shot to get as far to the right as possible without peaking is gonna result in great shots. Anyways, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. If you liked a video like this where it's no strings attached, straight to the point, let me know that as well. I can definitely do more videos like this in the future. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Happy shooting.